One of my very first videos was a how to have a successful start with SimCity. It was a long form video, and actually it was the beginning of my season one of Let's Play SimCity. A short time after that video, based upon my thoughts about how that was and wanting to make a more concise video and feedback that I got in comments, I did a beginner's guide to SimCity in which I was able to take a lot of that information and instead of a long form, make it more concise and quicker to going over what we wanted to talk about with how to get a city started. That video was just about the basics. And in that video, I was talking about how I wasn't going to get into a specialization. And now what I want to do an updated version of a beginner's guide. I want to take what I have already talked about, but I want to blend in. There have been so many comments, feedback, questions. I want to take that. I want to incorporate it in an updated video in which we also talk about how to make money in the city. So it is still going to be a basic how to get started with SimCity, but we're also going to incorporate how to make money with SimCity by using a specialization. So that's what I want to do. I think that they all work well. You can look at my very first video. You can also refer to the beginner's guide and then also refer to the updated version that we're working on here as a way of getting yourself into SimCity. Let's say you're brand new, you've never played before, or you've played and you've had some challenges, or you've played my beginner's guide and now you're saying, okay, Leonard, that's good, but I need to know how to make money for the city. So that's what this is. If you just want to sit back and watch, wonderful. But if you're looking for an updated version of my beginner's guide and you're wanting to now get into how to make some money using a specialization, welcome. You're welcome to play along with this updated version. You are welcome to use any region that you want. Really, all that we're looking for when it comes to a region is that you want to pick a city plot that has the three important things that you're going to need, which is water, wind, and in the case that we're following, going to be oil. But if you want to do coal and ore, you would just look for a city plot that has that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select Reflection Atoll. It has the three things that I'm looking for. It has a very beginner friendly city, and the name of the city is actually going to be Petrol Bay. But this is where we're going to start for our beginner's guide is Reflection Atoll. So we are now in our region. And then once you get into a region, or as you're looking, you can always just select various regions and look for a city plot that meets your needs. But you click on the city plot and it's going to tell you what resources are available. This city plot, as I said, called Petrol Bay, this is a really good beginner city plot. It's got maximum amount of oil, maximum amount of water. Yes, I would love more wind, but this is fine. This is going to suffice. It's got rail connection. It's got shipping via water. So this is going to be the city plot that I am going to select. If you're following along and you're looking for a city plot, this is a great start. All right, wonderful. We are in Petrol Bay. The very first thing that we want to do is we're going to want to pause the game. Now that we've paused, I want to take a few moments. Let's go over. You may not be familiar with the user interface. I just want to go over it briefly You may already be familiar, so in that case that you already know about the user interface, I just want to go over it just briefly for those that may not be familiar. The majority of the time, you're going to be in City View. That's this tab over here. You'll see 4 tabs over here on the left-hand side. The City View tab is where you're going to be spending most of the time, and the tabs down here are all related to City View and working with your city. For example, road and power, water, sewage, government, garbage, and so on and so forth. Just above City View is Region View. There are a new set of tabs, and we may get into those later, but those tabs all relate to how you relate, how this particular city relates to other cities. To get back to your city, you click on City View. Above Region View is your Great Works site. We may talk briefly about Great Works, but really we're focusing on the basics and getting a specialization up and running. And speaking of specialization, right below City View is your city specialization. You've got specializations for getting resources out of the ground. You've got specializations for electronics. You've got specializations for tourism. And you've got, if you have the expansion pack, the specializations for cities of tomorrow. To the right, we've got our bulldoze tool. Right below bulldoze is a very important data maps. We're going to be spending more time in data in this beginner's guide than we did in the other beginner's guide. To the left, we have our RCI, residential, commercial, industrial demand. These 3 guides, markers, I basically consider them next to useless. If you want to refer to them, fine, but I will not be referring to them. I do not get much use out of these 3. Here is our population tab, history, and detail. We're going to be spending more time in the detail tab than history. This is our city budget, our expenses, our income, taxes, bonds, what the city is making, what the city is spending. We'll spend a lot of time here. To the left of that is the smiley face. This is our approval rating. To the left of that is the name of the city. You can change the name. You've got our speed controls, so play, pause, the time of day. As you can see, it's just after 7 a.m. We are currently at turtle speed, but you can go to llama speed, cheetah speed. The first bit of advice is you're going to want to stay at turtle speed. One of the things that I do find in the comments, one of the reasons that people get into trouble is things are going too quick. And when you're going at cheetah speed, things may happen faster than you're able to respond to them. We are paused. No matter how many cities I start, the first thing that I always do is I go here to the wind and I take a look at the direction that the wind is blowing. The wind is blowing in this direction. It's important to know that. And the reason why is you're going to have things in this city that create air pollution and also create ground pollution. You want to make sure that your air pollution is being blown away from your city and away from your residential area so that you're not causing yourself any unnecessary issues. So even before we've gotten started with building our city, we already know that this area is going to be where the pollution is going to be. So we've already kind of got an idea of where our industrial neighborhood is going to be. Let's go back. Now we want to click on water. I like Petrol Bay because we've got a lot of water. So now we know a second thing. We now know that our water, we're going to be getting our water at this end of the city. Unlike the other beginner's guide that didn't get into a specialization, I want to click on oil, and we have a significant oil reserve underground at Petrol Bay. We may not, more than likely, we won't be tapping into all of this oil, but now we know where that's located. With those three bits of information, wind, water, and oil, we can now start the process of laying out our city. If it helps, one thing that you can do, we can go back to oil, we can go to road, we can get dirt road, and we can maybe do just a bit of an outline of where the oil is. And let's do this. We're not going to need all of this, so let's maybe do something like that. We don't want to spend a lot of money on dirt road just to lay this out. Let's actually add a bit more. Let's do this. And let's bulldoze. It's a good demonstration of how the bulldoze tool works. And now, so what we have done is we have said this particular spot of land, we now remember where it is. So as we're building the city, we won't encroach on that. But we know that we've got more available down here. But this is just a good start. All right, let's get started. This is really important. This version of SimCity is really about traffic management. This is a traffic simulation game as much as it is anything. So this entrance to your city is critical to the success of your city. One of the things that if you look at early videos when this game first came out, and I did this as well, you would see where people would begin their city this way. They would start making zones literally at the beginning of the city. And then what happens is, as the city starts to grow, you're now creating a traffic jam literally at the entrance of the city. So I recommend not doing that. So let's get our neighborhood set up, and then we'll figure out how to connect to our neighborhoods. We already know that our residents are going to be here. This is going to be where the clean air is going to be located. So let's use our guide. We want to keep an eye on our finances. That should work. Now let's come over here. And over here where we know things are going to be dirty and polluting. You can do dead ends if you want, but as you can see, large blocks, and the reason why I'm doing large blocks, the game struggles, the simulation struggles with lots of intersections, especially a four-way intersection. You may have situations where you just have to have four-way intersections, but try your best to avoid four-way intersections. Now we've got ourselves a very basic residential, industrial area. We're going to put in a bit of commercial. Now let's get away into the city. What I like to do, I am a fan of roundabouts. The reason I like roundabouts, let's actually come here. What I like about roundabouts is it allows me to have multiple ways into the city. You may have one area that's clogged, but you might have others that are not as clogged. It's your city. You can do it however way you want it, but as just a bit of advice, let's do this. Let's it may not look like much, but we have ourselves the beginning of a city. We have a way in. We have a couple of different ways to different parts of the city. We have a residential area. We're going to put some commercial, and we're giving our residents multiple ways to get to the industrial area, and we're giving the industrial traffic kind of its own road separate from a road coming into residence. Let's do this for your zones. As you can see, my zones are grayed out. My utilities, you cannot place. That's because we're paused. So what we're going to do is we're going to briefly unpause, let the actual city be founded. We now have zones, and we now have access to our utilities. I'm going to want to pause again because the utilities have a hourly rate to them. So I don't want you getting into a deficit before you get a chance to start to get in some taxable income. So we're paused again. Let's do this. Let's go to residents. And what you want to do, a good rule of thumb is kind of a 3 to 2 to 1 ratio. So let's go 1, 2, 3 resident. Let's go 1, 2 industry. And what you can do is you can do that if you want. The other thing that you can do, because what's going to happen is over time, you're not going to have enough residents close to that. So if you want, you can kind of spread it out. Like, you could do something like that if you want. But just keep in mind, 3, 2, 1. Now, we want to place down, let's get wind power. And let's put wind right about there. Let's going to be temporary. It's not going to stay there because we're going to move on from wind power. Let's go to water. Now remember, we want clean water. We don't want ground pollution. The water is clean here. Over time, this ground is going to become dirty. So let's pull our water from there. Sewage. Let's draw another. Let's do this. Let's put our sewage there. If you look at the icons, you will notice that power, water, and sewage, if you just look at how they're located, the simulation, the game is telling you what's important. These three are your critical services. Next is going to be garbage, but we can't do garbage yet. We need a town hall, which is going to become city hall. Now, we've got our three major services. We've got our zones. Let's go ahead and play. And we will welcome in our residents to the city. So naturally, we're negative. We do not have anybody in paying taxes, whether it's a resident, a commercial, or an industrial. So we are negative. This is what we're losing over the course of an hour. This is what we're losing if we were to stay just like this for the month. We don't have any transactions taking place. We can take out a bond if we need, and we may do that. But for right now, let's just get our city up and running. We've got some commercial locations. We've got some houses being built. We've got some industrial buildings. We do not have anybody staffed because they have to move in first. Of the three, we do not need staff there, and we do not need staff at the water tower, but I do need staff. We do need employees at the wind power plant. So we have 36 residents, now 42 residents. My power icon has lit up. My advisor is concerned. City needs power. Well, we haven't hired anybody. Oh, we just hired some individuals. Now we're getting power being generated. You can see the power moving through the streets. That yellow line is slowly working its way through the street. It's so important. Your advisor is just that. They are an advisor. It's your city. You know what it is that you're trying to accomplish in the city. The advisor may panic over something that doesn't require panicking. So take their advice, but don't let them control what you do in the city. That can get you into trouble if they're asking for you to address something that doesn't need to be addressed immediately and is going to have a financial cost to it. We have now unlocked Town Hall. Let's place Town Hall. If you've never played this version of SimCity before, items that are ploppable, if you look, you'll see a brief outline, a very faint outline around this building. This building has modules that can be added to it as we get close to the road. See those red boxes? That's telling you that if you want to add a module to the right side, you're not going to be able to. So let's leave ourselves some space. on. It's ready to accept people. They want you to name the city. You can name the city if you want, but we're going to leave it as Petrol Bay. Now that we've done that, we can put down garbage, which is important. Let's extend. And let's click on garbage. We just barely have enough to afford garbage. So let's do this. Let's click on budget. There are two things that we're going to do. The first thing that we're going to do is let's take out a bond, a 25,000 simoleon bond. You can see what we have to pay back per hour. So that's going to put us a little bit further negative. That's fine. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to take this 9% tax rate. The only tax that we can do right now is for low wealth residential, and that's all we have. Let's take tax rate to 12. When we did that, you notice that we now went into the green. We went into the positive. Let's go to garbage. Let's put down garbage. You see the red box, so we want to be careful because there are some things that we may want to place. Specifically, we don't want to do it just yet because it's expensive. Click on edit. We are going to want the garbage incinerator. Don't need it right now, but we now have space for it. Those four services, garbage, water, sewage, power, are your four most important early game services. I know it's tempting to want to put down others, but that can get expensive. And I don't want you getting yourself into trouble early on. The other thing to keep in mind, if this is your first city in a region, the simulation is going to be forgiving up until about 1,000 residents. At 1,000 residents is when the simulation will start to say, all right, I've given you time. Now you need to start placing some things. And the two most important things that you're going to want to place are fire and health, in that order. Typically fire is the more important of the two. But health is going to follow pretty soon after you place fire. We've got industrial buildings. Being built. We have commercial. And we have residential homes. This is a great time to talk about the overall goal of what you're trying to accomplish in a city. And that is you're just wanting to keep people happy. I call it the happiness loop. The way this simulation works is you're wanting to make sure that your residents are happy. And that's what's going to go into this approval rating. That's what's going to go into things upgrading and the overall success of your city. So let's start with the residents. Every morning, your residents are going to get up. The ones that are working, because not all of them are workers. We click on this, and as you can see, 366 residents, 248 of them are capable of working. Every morning, the residents are going to get up and they are going to attempt to get to work. Most of them will go there. Some will go and work at the garbage. Some will work at your power plant. Some will go to work in commercial or in a government building. At the end of the day, they will collect a paycheck. And now that they have a paycheck, they will attempt to work their way home. They want to, before they end their day, they want to take some of their pay and they want to have fun. They have fun by going to shop or playing in a park, or if you've got something set up like a gambling location, but nevertheless, they want to have fun. At the end of the day, if they were able to do that, then they are going to be happy. They're going to want to stay in your city. And as long as the taxes are reasonable, they will pay taxes. Your commercial location, every day, it wants to be able to open its doors and have an employee show up, and it wants shoppers. If over the course of a day that happens, your commercial location will be happy. They will pay taxes as long as the tax rate is reasonable. They will stay in your city. Your industrial area, same thing. They want to be able to have people show up, work in the factory, produce goods, and if that happens, then they will stay happy, they will stay in your city, and they will pay taxes as long as the tax rate is a reasonable tax rate. Part of that happiness, part of the happiness loop is, do we have, in addition to that, do we have the things that we need? Do we have water? Do we have power? Is there garbage? Is the garbage being collected? Do we have garbage piling up? How about our sewage? Do we have good education? Are we protected from crime? Are we protected from fire? Can we go to a health clinic if need be? All of those things contribute to the happiness, but I call it the happiness loop. When you're meeting those needs of your residents, they're going to be happy. They're going to stay in your city. They're going to pay taxes as long as that tax rate is fair. And we'll get into that a little bit later on. Let's get into some data. Let's go to our population. So as we can see, it's the number of workers. We only have low wealth workers. Of those low wealth workers, this is how many available jobs there are. We have more available jobs than we have workers, which is a good thing. You want to have more jobs. You want your workforce to be able to work. The worker tab is the most important. Shoppers, industrial freight, those are all things that you can get into later. But as long as you've got available jobs, that is a good thing for your city. Over here, your most important tabs at this particular time, you can go to the happiness tab. The happiness tab, now it's a young city. So over time, you're going to want your houses and your commercial and your industrial to be as close to dark green as possible. We are primarily green. We have some lime green, but that's because it's a very young city. They haven't had a chance to get there. But I like the fact that we are not yellow, orange, or red. This tab shows that all of our residents are low wealth. This tab shows the progress, the building density. Very young city. It's going to start out orange and slowly work its way to green. Once you get to green, that's a sign that your buildings are ready to upgrade if you want them to upgrade. We're doing a good job with collecting garbage. No garbage is piled up. Everything is getting electricity. Everything is getting water. Sewage is good. You can click on this population tab to show you your workers, your students, residents, where everybody is. There aren't that many people in the city right now, but this is a good way of watching traffic flow, pedestrian flow. If you'll notice, we have not done anything related to oil or the specialization that we were talking about. At first, I thought that since we've already done one beginner's guide, I would just skip the beginnings of a city and jump right into the specialization. But the one thing that I thought is maybe there are individuals who've never seen that first beginner's guide, and it is so important to emphasize you want to make sure that you've got a good foundation of a city set before you start working on your specialization. It's all part of that going slow, taking your time, not going so fast. And there's really no need of having a specialization set up when the basics, the foundation of your city is not set. You've got fires out of control, you've got people that are suffering from illness, and you've got crime in your city. So that's why we are taking our time and we are kind of going over some of the territory that we've gone over in our last two starter guides. We are now just over 1,000 residents. Let's do this. Let's add more residents, but now we also need to at least start to address fire. You can place fire wherever you want, but I always recommend that you want to put your fire close to your industrial area. So let's do that. Let's do fire here. Now that we've placed fire of the modules, and it has to hire, but you'll see here, you see the fire alarm? The fire alarm will dispatch fire trucks twice as fast. So that is a great addition, a great investment. We are making a good hourly profit. There's nothing wrong with taking out another bond. Now that we've taken out that bond, now let's come closer to the city, and we want to put down healthcare. Now, when you place your services, remember your services will have, a lot of them will have a positive effect on land value. So before you place them, make sure you're looking at areas so that you know that you are affecting the land value. Let's come close to Town Hall. And let's put our clinic right here. It's on one of the main roads. Now, I like to put a sign. As you can see, it doesn't say anything about helping people find the clinic, but it doesn't hurt. We do not need to add anything to it at this time. We have health, we have fire. We can wait a while for police. You'll also notice we've not done education, we've not done mass transit. It's still an extremely young city, and you don't need those things just yet. Let's do that. And because of the shape of the town hall and how much space it takes up, let's do that. And then that. We need more commercial. We can start the process of painting in commercial here and there, maybe more residential, knowing that we're going to lose some of these buildings here because we're going to be adding modules. Now that we're adding, we need to always be mindful of how are we doing here. It's the available jobs is starting to shrink. It's the following morning. I've allowed the game to run overnight. We've added more simoleons to the bank. We can now think about another service, which would be for police. I'm going to stick with the basic police station just in case you don't have the French police station. Let's put that right there. Now that the police station has been placed, we now have taken care of the most important services: electricity, water, sewage, garbage, fire, health, and police. If you look at the icons, you can even see there's a bit of a gap. There's a space. Education, mass transportation, parks, yes, they're good to have. Education is really good for keeping down crime and whatnot. But this is the point where we can look and say we have ourselves the foundation of a city. What I'm going to do, I'm going to allow the game to run a little bit longer to make some additional funds, but I am going to go ahead and take out another bond. We're still making a profit. We have 54,000 simoleons, and now we can start the process of thinking about our specialization, and our specialization is going to be drilling. We've unlocked the oil well, and the basic oil well is 37,500 simoleons, and it's only 150 simoleons an hour. I'm going to allow the game to run a while just to build up a bit so that we're not completely wiping out our funds. But this is the time where we can at least start thinking about and planning our oil. So let's do this. Let's go back here. We've already gotten an idea of where the oil is located, and we've drawn some roads. So instead of completely getting rid of these roads, let's do this. Let's connect that. Now, if you're like me, you'd prefer that this street road is completely straight but that's okay. Let's do curve. And then we're going to run this road. So we're going to run the road. When I work on a specialization, especially on a city like this, I like for my specialization to have its own road, its own connections, so that even if things are going wrong here, my specialization has its own road to get in and out of the roundabout and in and out of the city. I've allowed the city to run for a while. We have a good amount saved up. Let's go to our specialization. The things that we're going to need an oil well, but we're also going to need a trade depot. So we need to factor that into our investment. So let's start with one oil well. Let's place it here. And if you look at the way the oil is set up, is that the best placement? And the answer is no. Let's do this. Let's run a road like that. We can now get rid of these guides. Let's take a look at this now. That makes more sense to do it this way. So we've placed that. Now that we've placed that, it has to hire. Let's not be in a rush to add more pump jacks. Let's go ahead and get our trade depot. You see those red boxes? We would not be able to add more. So let's just bring it out here. Although we could do it to the side, but let's do this. We have eaten into our funds significantly, but we still have some left over. Let's place a sign. It's hiring. Let's come over here. Place a sign. What we want to do is we want to get rid of, whoops, it's already started filling up. I do not want freight. Let's do crude oil. The reason why I do not want freight, I do not want trucks from here making a special trip over here to drop off freight. I'd rather give them their own freight depot than to start adding to the traffic here. Let's come here. We want to manage and we want to export the oil. And it's not going to be a lot initially because we only have 2 pump jacks, but that's fine. But at least we're getting started. We'll hire individuals, and as we make funds, we'll add to the pump jacks. So the horn has just gone off. People have been hired here. While that was taking place, let the simulation continue to run. Let the city continue to make money. So we've built up some funds. Waiting to see the pump jacks. There, the pump jacks are going, pumping oil. Now, we have been bringing in people. We are no longer purely a low wealth. So let's do this. Let's drop our taxes down to 11%. Let's look at our population. See that we have some medium wealth, and that 12% was a bit high for medium wealth, but we can still only control taxes for one wealth level. Let's come back here. Let's extend this road and let's add. We can comfortably let's do that for right now. We will allow more funds to build up, and then we will add more pump jacks. The maximum is 10. While we build up funds. Let's see if that will fit. Yep. Our health indicator, lots of health issues. The advisor is saying lots of health issues, but as you can see, we do not have a lot of people dying. But the waiting room, so let's add on some capacity. That's why you always want to leave just a bit of additional funds in the event. We do not need an ambulance, so sick residents will take themselves by car or walking to the clinic. The ambulance is for injured. You're always going to have more sick than injured Sims. So capacity is more important than ambulances. We can add on to industry. Let's do that. We have dirt roads. We haven't upgraded the roads, but that's fine. We have the foundations of a city. We've got a city with the major services in place. We will be adding the schools and the mass transit and the parks. But the most important items for right now are in place. Our advisor is telling us not enough freight consumers, and I was waiting for the advisor to say that. So let's come over here. What that means is there aren't enough commercial locations. That's perfectly fine. So let's come over here and let's go to our specialization. It does not always have to be for oil or something like that. Let's get a trade depot and let's place it. Let's come out here. We can afford it. Let's put this down. This time I want to leave the freight warehouse. Additional freight warehouses are not extremely expensive. And it's already starting to fill up with freight that's coming from here. What that means is they now have a place to ship their freight other than a commercial location. That's going to make them happy. We have enough funds where we can place one or two more. I cannot foresee an emergency coming. We have our services in place, so we can place a couple more, and we are almost at our max of 10 pump jacks here. I can click on trade to see that we're extracting lots of oil from the ground. A truck will ship it here and that will fill up, and then a truck will come from the region and pick up oil. Another morning, we've gone through another night cycle. I've allowed the game, the simulation to run. We have built up more funds. And now we just maxed out on the pump jacks. For this oil well, we will add more. We've had a couple of shipments of oil go out. We are about half full. And I was looking in the distance to see if I see any trucks. Oh, it looks like a truck may have already arrived. Yes. Crude oil delivery truck. So it's important to keep in mind the trucks that come to pick up oil are not your trucks. The simulation will generate trucks from the region to come and collect the oil. So if I see one coming, I'll try to highlight it. It will say coming from the region or something along those lines. Now that that truck has come and picked up, there's our fourth export. We have done 4 exports of oil. But yeah, I will try to keep an eye out so that the next time a truck is coming. But yeah, those trucks are not your trucks. Your trucks stay within the city and they go back and forth between the oil well and the trade depot. Or they may go back and forth, if you're over here, between an industrial building and this trade depot. And so now we have ourselves a city up and running. It's a small, modest city, but in addition to the standard city that we've gone over in a previous beginner's guide, we now have the addition of a specialization, which is oil. So what we're going to continue to do is we're going to continue to add more oil capacity. Of course, we need to add on to the city. We need to upgrade our roads. We need to add education. We need to add mass transportation. We need to make the city more attractive as far as parks are concerned. We need to monitor the happiness of our residents. Um, but that's to come. But we have completed the first phase of our beginner's guide, our city with an oil specialization, with more to go. We've got some updates. We've got some things that we need to change out, such as electricity. But that will be in our next episode.